Here's a situation that plays out more than most people admit. Someone in their late 50s, solid saver, disciplined investor, has built a respectable income portfolio, covered expenses, reasonable yield, feels stable. But 10 years from now, inflation has quietly eroded the purchasing power of that income. The withdrawals haven't grown, the portfolio hasn't kept pace, and the lifestyle they planned for starts requiring trade-offs they never expected. Not because they made a terrible decision, because they optimized for income and forgot about growth. That gap, that's what we're talking about today. In our 3-bucket retirement framework, foundation, growth, income, the growth bucket is the one we talk about least, but it might be doing the most important work. It's the engine that keeps the income bucket alive, and if it's underfunded or filled with the wrong funds, the whole system slows down. Today, we're going inside that growth bucket. 4 specific ETFs, real allocation percentages, current verified performance data, and the reasoning behind each choice, including one that surprises most people. By the end of this, you won't just know which funds, you'll understand why the combination matters. Most retirement conversations are dominated by income, and that makes sense. Income is what you live on. But here's what gets missed. The growth bucket isn't there to produce income right now, it's there to fund income later. Think of it as the fertilizer. It keeps growing in the background, quietly compounding, and when it outgrows its own boundaries, you trim that excess and move it into your income fund. The income bucket gets replenished, the growth bucket keeps producing. In our portfolio, 15% sits in growth, not 50%, not 30%, 15%. Because when you're already living off dividends, you're not trying to be aggressive across the board. You're being strategic about where aggression lives. That 15% has to work harder than any other piece. The dot-com crash, 2008, COVID, the 2022 bear market, every one of those looked catastrophic in the moment. Every one of them, if you stayed invested, became an opportunity. The investors who panic sold locked in real losses. The ones who held, or better, added, captured the full recovery. Growth investing rewards patience, not prediction. Before we get to the specific funds, here's the checklist we run every ETF through. Assets under management. We want $100 million minimum, really $1 billion or more for core positions. Smaller funds carry liquidity risk that has nothing to do with market performance. Every fund in this portfolio clears that bar comfortably, as you'll see. Expense ratio. Over decades, fees compound just like returns do, but in the wrong direction. We're looking for 0.20% or lower, ideally far lower. Technology exposure. This is an intentional tilt. Over the past decade, technology has been the single most consequential driver of market returns. Ignoring that isn't being neutral, it's leaving performance on the table. Number of holdings. Concentration in 1 or 2 names isn't diversification, it's a bet. We want breadth. Historical total return. Not yield, not recent performance. Total return across full market cycles. 10 years is meaningful, 20 is even better. Short track records can look impressive during bull runs and reveal nothing about resilience. These aren't arbitrary criteria. Each one filters for a specific risk. Together, they describe a fund that's built to be held, not traded.
VOO, Vanguard S&P 500 ETF, 40% allocation, the foundation of the growth bucket. The S&P 500, not because it's exciting, because it's reliable. And the headline number here is worth pausing on. In June 2026, VOO became the first ETF in history to cross $1 trillion in assets under management. That's not just a milestone, it's a signal of how deeply this fund has become the default choice for long-term investors worldwide. Currently sitting at approximately $1.02 trillion in AUM, expense ratio of 0.03%, that's 3 basis points, practically free. 1-year total return is approximately 26.8%. 5-year annualized is approximately 14.1%. 10-year annualized is approximately 15.6%. Since inception in September 2010, it's approximately 14.9% per year. That's roughly 15% annualized over 16 years through two major bear markets, a pandemic, and a complete interest rate cycle. Warren Buffett's advice to most investors is simple: own the S&P 500 and leave it alone. There's a reason that advice holds up. 500 companies continuously rebalanced by the market itself. The losers fade, the winners grow. The index adapts automatically. The approximately 1% dividend yield on VOO isn't the point here. Every dollar of growth that stays in the fund compounds into a larger base, and a larger base produces more overflow into the income bucket over time. This is the core. The other three funds orbit around it. That's why it's 40% of the growth bucket, not because it's the flashiest return, but because it's the most consistent. VGT, Vanguard Information Technology ETF, 30% allocation. If VOO is the foundation, VGT is the accelerant. One quick note before the numbers: VGT completed an 8-for-1 share split in April 2026. The split doesn't change returns, just makes the per-share price more accessible. The performance data below reflects total returns, unaffected by the split. Current AUM is approximately $170 billion. Expense ratio is 0.09%. 1-year total return is approximately 53%. 5-year annualized is approximately 20 to 21%. 10-year annualized is approximately 25.3%. That 10-year number is extraordinary, and it's real. This fund has been around since 2004, over 22 years. The early years of technology weren't generating the same returns it does today. The 10-year and 5-year figures reflect modern technology's structural role in the economy: cloud computing, semiconductors, AI infrastructure, enterprise software. Technology isn't a speculative bet anymore. It's embedded in how every major company operates. VGT gives concentrated exposure to that shift without requiring you to pick individual winners. The dividend yield is approximately 0.32%. We're not here for income from VGT, we're here for the compounding. One honest note: technology is cyclical. This is the highest volatility position in the portfolio. VGT dropped nearly 30% in 2022. That's exactly why it's paired with VOO and not running at 60 or 70% of the bucket. If technology corrects sharply, and it will at some point, the other positions provide ballast. That's not a warning to avoid VGT, it's a reason to pair it intelligently.
QQQM, Invesco NASDAQ 100 ETF, 20% allocation. A quick note: QQQ and QQQM track the same index, the NASDAQ 100. The difference is structure. QQQM was designed for long-term holders. QQQ was designed for active traders. For a buy-and-hold retirement portfolio, QQQM is the right vehicle. Current AUM, approximately $96.9 billion. Expense ratio, 0.15%. Inception date, October 2020, so just under 6 years of track record. 1-year total return, approximately 40 to 43%. 5-year annualized, approximately 17.7 to 18%. Year-to-date through mid-2026, approximately 21%. The NASDAQ 100 includes the 100 largest non-financial companies listed on the exchange, heavy technology weighting, but also consumer discretionary, healthcare, and other high-growth sectors. It overlaps with VGT in places, but the composition is different enough to serve a distinct function. This overlap deserves a direct acknowledgement. Both VGT and QQQM hold major technology companies. Investors who want cleaner separation might adjust these weights. The trade-off is that the overlap sits in the highest performing holdings, so it's not purely a problem. Know what you own. The fund is just under 6 years old. We'd prefer a full 10-year track record before making it a larger position, but what we have is compelling, and the underlying NASDAQ 100 indexed has a much longer history. We'll keep watching and let the track record develop. SCHD, Schwab US Dividend Equity ETF, 10% allocation. This is the one that raises eyebrows. A dividend fund in a growth portfolio? Here's the reasoning. Current AUM, approximately $100 billion. Expense ratio, 0.06%, the lowest in this portfolio. Current yield, approximately 3.27 to 3.3%. Inception, October 2011, nearly 15 years of track record. 1-year total return, approximately 24 to 25%. 5-year annualized, approximately 8.7 to 18%. 10-year annualized, approximately 12.9%. Since inception, approximately 13.3%. At first glance, 8.7% over 5 years looks modest compared to the others. Some of that's explained by the 5-year window catching a rough period. SCHD's 10-year number of 12.9% is more representative, but even that is below the others. So why is it here? 2 reasons. First, the buffer function. When you've owned a dividend fund for several years and it is compounded, the yield you receive isn't 3.3% on today's price, it's 3.3% on your original cost basis. Long-term holders can see effective yields on original capital in the 7 to 8% range. That matters when the income bucket hits a rough patch. SCHD can be redirected from reinvestment to support income temporarily. It's insurance built into the growth side. Second, the inflation hedge. A 3.3% yield with a track record of dividend growth means this position stays ahead of inflation even in slower growth years. It does quiet work that doesn't show up in the headline return. It's not the most exciting position, it's the most durable.
The growth bucket isn't the most complicated part of a retirement portfolio. It's 4 funds, a clear allocation, and a philosophy of patience. VOO just crossed $1 trillion in assets, the first ETF in history to do so. That's not just a milestone for Vanguard, it's a signal that the case for low-cost, broad-market, long-term investing has won the argument at scale over decades. What makes this portfolio work isn't the selection of any single ETF, it's the combination: stable core, technology accelerant, NASDAQ exposure, dividend buffer, and the commitment to leave it alone when the market makes leaving alone feel impossible. The goal of the growth bucket isn't to beat the market every year, it's to stay large enough and growing enough that your income fund never runs dry, and your retirement doesn't require the trade-offs you planned to avoid. That's a different goal than most investors optimize for, and it's a better one.